Guys, this is your girl Lira, and you're listening to Self Reflection Podcast. Thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Self Reflection Podcast. I hope that this conversation finds you in the best possible light that you can be in for yourself in today. And if you're not doing your best, I want to remind you in this moment, please go ahead, create a moment for self-reflection. Self-reflection is one of those things that I have found for myself to be really helpful when it comes down to my mental health, my emotional health, and also my psychological well-being as well. So if this is a space that you're struggling in, self-reflection is one of those things that I feel like can help us realign ourselves back when we feel out of sort or we feel as if we're not grounded. Again, thank you guys so much for joining me on Self Reflection Podcast. Before we get into our conversation, I want to ask you, if you have yet to subscribe to Self Reflection Podcast, please go ahead and hit that subscription button. I'll greatly appreciate it as we look to grow our community here. It will mean a lot to me. And also for all those that have subscribed to Self Reflection Podcast, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being part of our amazing community. Thank you for supporting Self Reflection Podcast. And also, I want to thank everyone that has left a review, the comments. I appreciate those because those are what that is helping us to continue to curate Self-Reflection Podcast into the conversations that you want to hear. All right, y'all. Thank you guys again for joining us. We're going to get into our podcast episode for today. Today we have a guest. We have Monica here on Self-Reflection Podcast. Monica is the founder of Mommy's Sweet Potato Pie. We're going to let her introduce herself, and also we're going to be talking about pie later on in our conversation. So please help me welcome Monica.
Thank you so much, Lyra, for having me. Yes, as she says, my name is Monica, and I am the founder of Mommy's Sweet Potato Pies. That's my side hustle. I do have a day job as well, and I work for Alameda County Social Services. So they're helping our community with their needs, to make sure that they have the health coverage that they need, food, and also finances to help them take care of their family.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on Self Reflection Podcast, and also thank you for the services that you do.
Thank you.
I work in the mental health field as well, and work in the I want to say service business as well. And just knowing what is going on in our society today and knowing how so many people are struggling, I appreciate the work that you do and the people that are in this space helping our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to dive right into our conversation today. And, for the first conversation or the first question that we have here is, was there ever a moment in your life where you didn't recognize yourself anymore and had to rebuild who you thought you were?
A moment in my life where I didn't recognize, I think I always recognize myself, um, whatever the situation was, whatever platform I was on. I always recognized who I was. I think the biggest thing for me was, why did I move the way that I did? Why did I have these different roles attached to me, depending on whatever the situation I was in? So I think that was the biggest thing that I struggled with.
Yeah. And before we carry on, can you tell us a little bit more about childhood and what that was like for you?
Childhood for me, childhood for me was it started off great in the beginning. Like probably those first 5 years were amazing because those were the years that my parents were together. And then an adjustment happened in the home where my dad was no longer there. So a lot of sadness. And I think that was a lot of the time. That period of time was a time where a lot of my character got built. A lot of insecurities, a lot of feeling unworthy, a lot of anger, things like that. So it was challenging for me growing up.
Yeah. And when we talk about that, we're going to dive into our second question, which was, what was a moment in your early life where you realized something needed to change, but you didn't know yet how to do so?
Well, with that, you know, I don't know if I even thought about things needing to change. I kind of felt like, well, if it's happening, this is the way it's supposed to be. I kind of just took things for how they were and built around the circumstances. Almost kind of like, if this is the way it's happened, it's the way it's supposed to be. So don't fight it. Just you just learn how to live, and you learn how to navigate. You know, being young, not really knowing what questions to ask, just kind of seeing how things were going
Yeah.
in life. So I think I just accepted life then, just for how it was.
And do you think that was like your environment, in the sense like your parents, your mom kind of just like embedded those ideas into you, or did you had somebody that kind of help you see life in that way?
No, and that's the crazy part about it, Lira. No, my mother was such a positive influence in my life. I don't know. It's just, it seems like when my father left, I told myself, okay, you're going to have to be the strong one in the household. I'm a little girl, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But I definitely felt how the dynamics changed. You know, with him there was so much security. I felt like I was on top of the world every single day that I woke up, you know, but him leaving, it's like half my heart walked out that door with him.
Yeah.
And I think it came from probably just seeing my mom and her sadness, but she was strong.
Yeah.
And she was resilient, and she kept moving forward, and just realizing that, hey, it's just me and her. So I don't know. I was just this little girl that's kind of like, I had to be strong. I had to just kind of strap up and be like, okay, I'm going to have to make it without him. I had all those questions like, why me? You know, why my
Yeah.
dad have to leave me? Why I have to be in a household where it's just me and my mom? You know, I asked myself a lot of those questions, but I didn't delve so deep after a while, because I think to think so deeply about it brought me a lot of pain, because I would blame myself for him leaving. You know, maybe it's something I did, maybe it's something I said,
Yeah.
you know, and knowing that it had nothing to do with me,
Yeah.
you know, but these are feelings of a child, you know, so yeah, just
Yeah, I really like what you touched on there, because you know, working in this space, I think that's one thing that I've seen a lot of kids like talked about, like it's my fault, or that this happened and that happened, right? And for any young boy or girl that is going through a similar situation, what is some supportive words you can like give to them right now to recognize like this is not your fault and you're just a kid in
yeah,
this space?
just what you said. It is not
Yeah.
your fault. We are children, you know, we're part of that family. So being part of that family, we're kind of just in the middle of things that are going on. And we always can't make sense of it, you know. But those adult situations have nothing to do with us as children, you know. And to, gosh, this was a, it's hard to tell a child not to not to take too much on, you know, and not to feel bad, you know, because they're part of that that family,
Yeah.
you know, and what affects one affects them all, you know. So just knowing that they're, you know, trying to just tell yourself, you know, I have nothing to do with this, which is not always easy, you know. Prayer, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one, because you can tell a child a lot, but if they don't believe it, it just kind of bounces off of them, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I also think you like mentioned something about like you know, that they're part of the family, and also is I think like validating their emotions in that space as well. Like, it's okay to feel like hurt in that space. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely. Feel hurt because you are hurt. They're real emotions. I grew up in a time where, especially with little boys, don't cry, don't show emotions. Why not? They're human.
Yeah.
Those things affect them because the lack of them crying or them showing emotion help to shape their character, and maybe why they can't handle or deal with situations successfully when they're adults, but it's deal with it. We have to be honest to those emotions. And I think we're in a time now where we are living more honest to those things that we are feeling, and we're talking about it, and we're trying to do things to change. We don't have to accept those things. It's there are things we can do to change our situations.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. What belief about yourself did you carry from childhood into your adult life that limits your growth?
The insecurity. Insecurity, feeling second best, feeling less than, it definitely was something that I've had to get rid of. I kind of just thought that, because of those feelings of insecurity and feeling less than is why I just thought that that's how things are supposed to be. You don't have to, why try to change it? Just try to navigate life around it. And I often think about, sometimes you always hear mothers, how they say all these sweet, gentle things to their children. And I had to learn that they weren't just words she was saying because she had to. They were words that she was instilling in me. She was teaching me awareness. She was building my self-esteem, teaching me about self-worth, giving me confidence, and most of all, love. And so when I think about that, those are the things that help me to get out of those thoughts that were stunting my growth, I guess, in a sense. And then that coupled with just how I know my God Jehovah feels about me, how much he loves me. And it's just like, I don't have to succumb to those negative things. So it's helped me to walk more on my purpose and I can do anything I put my mind to. Hard work. So.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to pause here real quick, and we're going to talk about the pie.
Okay.
So when it comes down to this, what inspired your pie, or the story behind this? And by the way, it's so good.
This is one of my favorite stories because it's one of my favorite pastimes. So sweet potato pie is my favorite. It's the first dessert I've ever remember ever having. It was my pastime with Mama Dia. And so when I was little, I would always go visit my grandmother in Texas. And when I was there, she would bake about 4 to 5 sweet potato pies to get me through the whole summer. And so our time together is we get up in the morning, we have a piece of sweet potato pie, we drink some coffee. She would have hers black. I added a little coffee to my cream and sugar, and we would watch The Price is Right. And that was my favorite moment with her, the laughter, the love, and it was a sweet time and a kind time. So fast forward, when I had my daughter almost 21 years ago, I was craving a sweet potato pie. And I was like, well, how am I going to get this pie? I'm like, Mama Dear, been gone. I was just like, I'm just like going off of what I remember. So I found this old Jet magazine. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a magazine. And in the middle of the Jet magazine was a sweet potato pie recipe. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so I took it home and I followed it and I started to tweak it a little. And I just started baking sweet potato pies because, again, it's my favorite. A little fast forward when my daughter got ready to go to school for kindergarten. And so her school had a meet and greet before school started because it was a huge kindergarten class. So we were W's, so there's like bring desserts. And so my husband was like, well, what you gonna take? And I was like, I'm just gonna take some sweet potato pies. He was like,
Yeah.
are you sure? Yeah, I'm just gonna bake some. So I baked a couple sweet potato pies. We took them to the gathering.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just put them on the table, and I'm just sitting in the park talking to different people, playing with our dogs, watching the kids running. I'm seeing people run back and forth to the table, and I'm like, what they running for? And then so I kind of put my ear over, and they're like, who made this pie? I kind of look like, are they serious? Nah, they gotta be kidding. And sure enough, they were talking about my pie. And so some of the parents was like, well, have you ever thought about doing this as a business? And I was like, no, not really.
Yeah.
So that was probably, the month was August 2010. And I said, well, let me just see how I can do just within the community, the school community. By November, Thanksgiving, I probably had 30 orders. And I was like, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
By the time Christmas came, the number had tripled. So now here I am in my car driving around the Bay Area delivering pies. And that's kind of just how it got started, just
Yes.
me taking them and just word of mouth, and didn't even know I could bake. Didn't even know.
Yeah. And when you talk about this, it's like, bringing your grandmother in the picture as well, right? This is like a recipe that comes from like something like a tradition as well, where I think for Africans or African Americans, right? This is how we keep our tradition alive, where we keep the recipes going. Is this something you're going to pass on to your daughter?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so funny because I never got the recipe from my grandmother, but I always remembered what it tastes like. And would let me know I had it spot on. I had baked one, and I had sent it to my dad before he had passed, and he tasted, he was like, this tastes just like my mom's pie. And when he told me that, I knew I had something. And so, yes, it is definitely something I will pass on, to my daughter. And it just the memory of that, but that's just how precious she was to me as well.
I love that. And when you talk about her, I can feel the feelings that you
Oh,
had
yeah.
towards her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna dive back into a conversation here, and our next question is: what part of your old identity did you have to let go in order to step fully into the woman that you are becoming today? And this can be in relation to the pie, anything.
Well, again, because that insecurity and it followed me all through, because not having my dad present in my home, I would see him from time to time. It just, I didn't feel 100. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I had to let that go and realize that my life is not pre-scripted. You know what I'm saying? I have free will.
Yeah.
There are so many beautiful things that we can have, that we can experience, if we put our mind to it. And I definitely had to let it go, especially being a businesswoman now, because if I don't think well or highly of myself, who else will? It's confidence. But in the most modest way, it's okay to love on ourselves, and that's what I had to do. I had to start loving myself and realize that I wasn't the reason for the breakdown in the family, so learning that and letting go of that, also so surrounding myself by others that think the same way.
Yes.
Good positive energy, to bounce off of each other. And as I was sharing with you earlier, the She Drive events.
Yes.
Where
Which
I
is
met
where
you.
we met.
Yes. I mean, that was an amazing event, to walk in that door and meet those amazing women. And, Cassandra just being the woman that she is, and how she just was pouring into everyone.
Yes.
And not being a gatekeeper, you know what I'm saying? But sharing, let's we can grow together. I so appreciate that. It gave me even more confidence to let me know that I was right where I needed to be,
Yeah.
and to meet you, such a beautiful person, and even just to have me here today. I think what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you.
And we need to talk about things like this,
Yeah.
because it's part of our healing, and so how we can move forward.
What was life like without your father? I know this might be also a heavy topic. And how did that shape you as a person today?
It was tough. It was tough, very tough. Without him, in the home with me every day, because I remember when he was there every single day, and I remember how I felt waking up every single day knowing my dad and my mom were right there. And then I know how I felt once he wasn't there. Um, you know, Not having in the beginning, he was still going, on field trips with me. But
Yeah.
as I got older, that dwindled away. The times I start was seeing him became less and less, but it's so funny driving here today. Um, the way that I came, my dad used to have a nightclub right on 23rd Ave, right around the corner. It was a barbecue pit / bar nightclub, and he had pool teams in it. And so to even drive by there, it brings back fond memories, because I remember the times when I would just go visit him there, whether it was just to go pick up something to eat or just hang out, and he would teach me how to shoot pool. So, so that brought back a memory for me, especially, coming here today.
Yeah.
But it was challenging to grow up without him. But the older I got, my mom always told me, just love your dad. You had nothing to do with this baby. She was just like, just keep loving him. You build your relationship with him, and you don't let anyone say anything bad about your dad. And that's what I did. I got to grow. I got to, especially as an adult,
Yeah.
I got to really know who he was, and we had a wonderful relationship, and I'm grateful for that. But also through that, I also discovered that I didn't miss out on anything. Yes, I may have missed out of having him in the home, but because he wasn't there did not make me less than. And so that's what it meant for me. So I was able to close that chapter, of me. And that's really been a source to help me heal.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I want to ask you, is there a lesson that you learned or your dad taught you in your life that you have used over and over?
I can't
Or something you
say,
picked up from him?
you know what? I never met a person who didn't like my dad. My dad was a wonderful man. He was so likable. I remember being in high school, and I would meet different people, and they find out, because the name of his place was Pruitt's Corner. And it's like, that's your dad? Oh, my mom plays on his pool league. Or my dad, your dad is so cool, So he was a man that everyone liked. He never argued. I never heard my dad have an argument. So even with him and my mom going their separate ways, there was not a fight. I never heard that. So I appreciate that for him. Even getting to know him as an adult and spend time with him, he was still that man. Now, would he go to bat for his kids? Absolutely. But he just was a likable guy. He wasn't a troublemaker, nothing like that. So I think that's what I love about him, is that, and he was always willing to help someone else out. So those are the things I think that I appreciate about him the most.
Yeah. And when you talk about your dad, it reminds me of my father, because like my dad doesn't argue. Like, and before he says something, it means that like you've probably done it over and over and over, and then he's saying something about it. And even when he does say something about it, if you choose to take it, you take it. But if you don't choose, he still allows you to like have your way. But yeah, I love that. I think like especially in our society today, where we see a lot of like parents like not being around, right? Um, when it comes down to like just growing as a woman, right? What other supportive word do you have for young girls that might be in the similar situation as you, but like you want them to feel like you said, you know, you feel like you didn't miss anything, right? Because that didn't take away from who you are.
Well, just to recognize that and to really to know that and to believe it, you know, we are still whole. You know, whether there's one parent in the home or two parents, we're still whole. You know, it's now in the times we live, they have so many groups and organizations, you know, for people to help encourage and inspire these young girls. So many programs in the school to teach young ladies how to get along instead of fighting one another. And the same, you know, for the young men. And just to be honest, with yourself, be true to your feelings and who you are. You know, it's okay to say that hurt, you know, or it's okay to say I didn't like that, but also be appreciative. You know, thank you. You know, take the gems that you get, put them to use. Yeah. Yeah.
You had that like smirk in your face. During COVID, when so many people were struggling, searching for comfort, you know, your pie became something that people felt comfort in, and that's how you give back during that time. Did you use your pie to build community?
Well, during COVID, so interesting because I stopped baking probably in 2013 because in 2013 my husband was like, hey, I need you to go back to work, you know, times and stuff. I was like, no problem. So that's when I started working for the county.
Yeah.
And it was a lot, and I didn't have any time to be doing any baking. So I had put the baking kind of on the back burner. But when COVID hit, wow, such a
What a time.
a time.
Yeah.
A very devastating time. We've never experienced that before. And it was a very sad time, a very devastating time, a lot of loss, you know, and we had a family friend that had lost a loved one, and I was just like, what can I do for them? And I said, I'm gonna bake a pie. You know, I'm like, sweets always makes people feel a little bit better.
Yep.
You know, and it was just it got me back to baking. I'm at home now, so it's COVID. I'm not at work, so I have nothing but time. And so I start baking pies, and what I did is I said, you know, let's just make the weekend my labor of love day. So every Sunday, I would choose different families within our congregation, and I would bake pies. And I would just take them to them just to say, hey, we're thinking about you. I love you, you know, to add some comfort,
Yes.
you know, because it was just a trying time, a very uncertain time. We didn't know what was going to happen, you know, how long this was going to last. And so getting used to this new way of life was very challenging. And so I did. And then I had some friends was like, hey, you going to start selling your pies again? I said, well, I guess I can, you know, a little wiser. I think I can do this now. And so that's kind of how mommies came back, and it's kind of been, and so now I'm in this learning phase, you know, of the business. And one thing that I learned, and even from that She Drive, you know, detail is so important.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so I'm just like, oh yeah, I could sell a pie. It's gonna speak for itself. And yeah, I could, but it's so much more than selling. I need structure. So many things. So currently in the present, learning the structure, you know, learning about details, making some changes. So there are some changes coming and they're all positive, you know. So it has been a way to give to to give back,
Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah. Before we continue our conversation, I want to do something a little fun here.
Okay.
Pie or cheesecake?
Pie.
Text message or phone calls?
Phone call.
Mm,
I miss talking on the phones.
yeah.
Texts, they're quick, if you don't have much to say, but there's a different connection when you can actually sit on the phone and talk with someone.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing I'm learning right now is if I have something to say, but if someone comes to my mind, just call. Yeah, just go, Comedy or scary movie?
Comedy.
Yes,
definitely
she's like, no
comedy.
scary.
Yes.
Podcast or music?
Music. I love music.
Favorite genre?
Jazz. Love jazz. I love all genres of music. If it's good music, it's good, but jazz has seemed to be a part of my life for quite a while. Yeah.
When you make the pies, do you have jazz in the bag?
Yes, a lot of when I cook, yes. And my daughter just happens to, she's a jazz musician. So just being able to enjoy her through her time in school and watching her and her talent. So that's been nice.
Nice. Favorite self-care activity?
I love bubble baths. I love to bubble baths, light music playing, candles.
Yeah.
Just a time to just kind of let go and reflect, and also just spending time with good friends.
Yeah.
That's self-care. We need that. It helps the mental, to fill in those voids that we need. Yeah.
And thank you guys so much for coming on Self-Reflection Podcast or for listening to Self-Reflection Podcast. I hope that this conversation finds you in the best light that you can be in as well. In this moment, before we continue, I want to ask you, if you have yet to subscribe to Self-Reflection Podcast, please go ahead and hit that subscription button. I'll greatly appreciate it as we continue to grow our community here. Also, if you're enjoying this conversation that we are having, go ahead and share it with one other person that you feel like might find value in it. Also, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about this conversation. And if you have someone that you think might be a good guest to come on Self-Reflection Podcast, please tag them in underneath this video or send me a DM on Instagram at Lira, LIRA_NDIFON. We'd love to have them on Self-Reflection Podcast. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us on this conversation. We're going to get back into our conversation with Monica here. If you're just joining us, Monica is the founder of Mommy's Sweet Potato Pie, and that's who we're talking about. And our conversation has been around, growing up as a little girl, healing from that space, and then becoming into the woman that you are today, right? When you look at yourself in the space that you're in, right, what are 3 lessons or 3 strengths that you have used to be who you are today?
3 lessons or 3 strengths. To become, well, first, I think foremost, my spiritual life. My relationship with Jehovah, just being the woman, being the Christian that he wants me to be, knowing how he feels about me, has helped me to redirect, my thoughts, my energy, my focus. So having that, my spiritual family,
Yes.
that's a big support, encouragement for me. Good friends, good friends, like-minded friends that love me. And not just when the times are good, not just to tell me what I want to hear, but sometimes I have to pull my coattail as well, So having those true friendships. Being a mom is interesting because me now being a mom, I reflect so much I can hear my mom so much, you know, in the things that I speak to my daughter and the way that I have raised her. And now that she's a young adult, you know, just maybe some suggestions I may give her or advice,
Yeah.
you know, remembering to always come from a place of love, you know. So it's, that helps me a lot, you know. The reflecting back on that.
Yeah. And I've heard you talk about your faith in this conversation
Mm-hmm.
several times today.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask you, what is that like, what does your faith means to you, and what does God means to you as well?
My faith means everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and without my relationship with God, without the knowledge, life would be just useless. You know, I learn how to live my life each day. I learn how to interact with people each day, how to be kind, you know, to people, and that there is so much more in store than just this life every day. You know, things like we're talking about today, like this trauma and self-reflection and the hardships. These things one day will be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Because that's what he told me. You know, I believe that one day these things will be done away with. You know, we won't have the pain anymore. You know, we won't cry, at least not tears of sadness,
Yeah.
you know, anymore. There'll be a thing of the past. And so my faith is my life. It's how I live my whole entire life. It's not anything that's separate. This is who I am every single day. And I'm a representative of him. So I want to make sure that I'm putting myself in,
Yes.
you know, the best light, living according to his word, you know, being kind to people, being loving, not being judgmental, you know. So it's my lifeline.
Yeah.
It's my lifeline.
I
Yeah.
love this. Who inspired you the most in your life?
Oh gosh, in my life, who inspired me the most? My mom. My mother was one heck of a woman. I remember my dad was like, "Your mom could take $5 and pay the rent, all the bills, get groceries, and still have change left over."
Oh my.
And I get it. My mom was smart. She was such a lady. I never sat down and heard her talking bad about people. She always gave of herself, even if she was the one who was suffering, you know, and she went through a lot in her lifetime. And I think all the stuff she went through, I used to be like, why her? You know, and I lost her early in life. She was young when she died, but she was an amazing woman. You know, I remember one time she was in a hospital sick and she praying for me. And it's just like, but mommy, you doing, but that's just, she was selfless.
Yeah.
You know, she would give whatever she could. And she taught me good lessons also. You know,
What are some lessons that she gave you?
like she taught me how to be self-sufficient. She didn't always come to my rescue. What would you do if I wasn't here? So I was like, okay. And I would figure some things out. And it wasn't that she didn't want to help me, but she wanted me to figure it out for myself.
Yeah.
Development, learning how you got resources out there. What are you gonna do with them? You know, she always used to have these sayings like, one of my favorites, she's always like, people don't believe fat meat is greasy. And I used to be like, okay, I get it now, you know. She just always had some of the quirkiest things she would say. But I find myself repeating her life in my life now. But my daughter and I crack up and laugh sometimes, you know, when I recognize it. So my mom, she was a beautiful, beautiful person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look back into your childhood, you know, what advice do you have for your childhood, or what childhood self, or what do you want to say to that young girl?
What I know now, like, there's no reason for you to feel insecure. There was no reason for you to feel unworthy, because you are worthy.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't have to just accept everything that came my way.
Yes.
That you can change, just by choices that you make. Also, I wish I would have talked more. Because one thing, I could hurt as a child, but I never made it known. I kind of just bottled it up and kept it to myself. But me doing that made me create these walls.
Yes.
I started putting up, and the walls was to guard my heart so I wouldn't be hurt. And had I been talking about those things, it was okay to say, "Hey, Mom, I'm sad about my dad being gone." Or, yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest, was him being gone, how it made me feel. And I think if we would have more conversations, and some things are so generational.
Yes.
My parents didn't talk about a lot of things.
Same.
And I wish that they would have. So as me being a parent now, I made sure that I talk about stuff. We've been talking to her since she was little, can understand, because who else they going to hear it better from
That's true.
than someone who really loves them. So yeah, I think telling myself now, like, let her know how you feel. Make them talk to you. Let your dad know. So I wouldn't have, maybe I could have understood better instead of, creating walls, and which it just caused more injury to me.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. And when it comes down to like mindset shift, like what are some things you did to be able to shift your perspective to see things the way that you see now as an adult?
I think just living, the getting older, getting more mature.
Life is life, and sometimes.
Yeah, life is definitely life, and it's, is, and to realize, get out of that spiral of insanity. You keep doing the same thing, but you're expecting a different outcome. That's crazy. So, sitting back, even just taking the time to get to know me. And I think once I discovered why I moved the way that I did, because it was all from my trauma, then I was just like, oh, okay, I can change that. I don't have to do things that way, or I don't have to accept that. So I think once I realized that, it changed for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much again for joining us on Self-Reflection Podcast. Before we continue on in our conversation today, I want to ask you, if you've yet to hit the subscription button, please go ahead and hit that subscription button. I greatly appreciate it as we continue to grow our community here. Also, I want to share that if you are somebody that is looking for an inner child healing workshop or coaching session, I am now receiving clients with my services. So please go ahead, comment underneath this video, inner child healing, or send me a DM and we can work together. Also, if you have anyone that you would like to bring on Self-Reflection Podcast or see on the platform, please go ahead and send us that. Or if it's yourself, if you want to be part of our family here on Self-Reflection Podcast, send us a DM and we'll get back to you as soon as we see your message. Thank you guys again so much for joining us on this conversation. So we're going to get back into a conversation with Monica, but what we're going to do is I'm going to have some pie on here and we're going to talk about this pie a little bit more. So let's get into this. So we're going to get back into our conversation, and we have two different pies here. We have the coconut one.
Coconut sweet potato.
Coconut sweet potato pie here. This is what it looks like. When you open it up, oh my God, you can smell the coconut. If you're a coconut lover, you're going to love this. And then we have the original one.
The traditional sweet potato pie.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm going to take a bite of this and we're going to see. And when when we talk about making pie, right? What emotions come up for you?
I'm happy. This is my happy space.
Yeah.
When I am baking, it's like music.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's music. I'm in my rhythm. It's art.
Yes, it
It's
is.
creating art. I think just my whole process is why I'm able to deliver the way that I do. I'm very
Yeah.
consistent. This is one thing I don't play with.
Mm.
So, because I try to make sure that I have the same outcome each time.
Yes.
So yeah, it is. It's my space. It's my
Zen.
zen.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it is definitely my zen, and it's my favorite.
Okay, guys. It's not all pretty anymore, but let's see. Mm.
Mm.
Sorry for anyone that's listening. You can hear the crunch.
Yeah, this is good.
This is delicious.
And it's so funny because now that I bake them so much, I don't even eat it that much. So every now and then I have to, let me see what the
Remind
hype
yourself.
is. Yes. And I'm like, okay, I get it.
What lesson has making pie taught you?
Be consistent.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one. To
Mhm.
be consistent, organized.
Mm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's
Pretty big. Yeah. So for anyone going on the journey, consistency and organization, something I can learn from, organized. I could be a little bit more organized. Can you tell us a little secret? What do you put in a pie? Because
mm,
you don't have to tell
what
us
I
all your secrets.
well, what I put in here, my spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, butter, of course. Brown butter. I brown the butter. Makes a big difference in the flavor.
Brown butter?
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of brown
Yep.
butter.
I brown it. I brown the butter.
Mm.
And I make it. And I got some little other special ingredients I put in.
Okay. Let's see. Honestly, I'm not usually a pie girl. I usually don't eat pies. Oh, I would eat it, but take out all the inside. You just eat the crust.
Yay.
So we're gonna get back into the conversation right now, and when I was eating a pie, I don't think I could get sad just eating the pie. Like if you were looking for a nice dessert to have at your party, whatever it's like a corporate party or a small house party, or if you're looking to give somebody a gift, I think that mommy's pie is something that I feel like I would give to a friend of mine if I was going to see them at a hospital or if I was going to see them at, their graduation, because it's so delicious. It could fit any situation or any space, right?
Yes.
So if somebody is looking to connect with you about getting some of this, where can they find you?
So that right now they can find me. I am on Instagram, mommies_sweet_potato_pies. They can always send me a message there. They can also call me 510-228-6158. And not only do I do, these are the personal size ones, I also do bite size. And those are sold by the dozen.
Those got me. I had like 5 when I met you.
Yeah, those are good. And then I also do the traditional round. And it's so funny that you mentioned about just a gift. So I had a launch party a couple of months ago. And so it was a couple who just happened to be at this vinyl wine bar that my lunch party was at in Alameda. And I said, hey, come over. Have you ever had sweet potato pie? So they hadn't had it before. So they came over and had some, and they end up buying a couple of pies because they wanted to gift it to a friend of theirs.
Yeah.
I think it was her birthday. And so just last week, I get this call from this lady, and she leaves me this long message. So I call her back, and she started telling me some friends gave me this pie,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been looking around where to get the sweet potato pie, but I don't know. I just really love yours. And I'm
Yes.
so happy that your label had your information on it. And so as she talked, and she said, yeah, I had a coconut one. I said, I know exactly where that came from. And so it was so nice. Says, well, keep my information. And I says, I can always ship them to you, older lady, so she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't drive as much. That's why I can mail them to you. Or if I'm ever over in your area, I can bring you some. So
Yeah.
people definitely do give them as gifts. And it is something I do year round. So this is just not a holiday thing.
Yeah.
So this is something I do all year.
Yeah, thank you for coming on Self Reflection Podcast and sharing your pie with us. And thank you for, you know, also allowing me to share this space with you and you sharing parts of yourself, right? Really vulnerable parts of yourself with us. When it comes down to like mental health right now in our community and especially in our African American community, we're still learning
Mm-hmm.
to let go of that generational trauma that we probably received from our ancestors because generational trauma goes at least like generations back, right? What are some lessons that you are installing in your kids or some practice that you're doing with your daughter to make sure that you're supporting this healing process as well for her?
I think the biggest thing is because with me coming from a generation where we didn't talk,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're in a generation. One thing we always did with our daughter from talk. It's
Yeah.
okay to talk. Whatever's bothering you, communicate. And you see, we live in in a generation now where everything is talked about, which is
Yes.
good because, um, you know, if we don't know, there's nothing we can do to resolve or
Yeah.
change a situation. So, um, and there's so many different things to get the support
Mm-hmm.
that we need. It's okay
Yeah.
if you need to talk to someone. There's so many just different levels of trauma that people are going through, just period. I mean, we're experiencing things we should never be even experiencing,
Yeah.
like crazy COVID. That that traumatized us all on the
Oh,
same,
yeah.
playing field, people dying,
Mm-hmm.
getting sick, just murders, everything. They're just crazy. There's just so much that's going on
Mm-hmm.
that no one should have to experience. So, and it affects people in different ways. So, the best thing is talking about it. Really just having that space, not bottling it in,
Mm-hmm.
seeking the help that you need so you can be better,
Yeah.
or at least you can function function
Yeah.
well enough to get through. So yeah.
Thank you. No. And I hope that whoever's listening can also find value in that and find connection with that
Hmm.
as well. Because that's one thing we don't really talk.
Hmm.
Usually they say, for our community, they say you don't put your family business out there or
Hmm.
air your dirty laundry kind of
Hmm.
thing, right? So, thank you for encouraging us to be able to speak up when we need to. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is because you do things that happen, and you have people you can talk to
Mm-hmm.
where because no, you don't want to air all your your dirty laundry.
Yeah.
But there are people there. We have therapists out there, doctors that can really, that's what they're there for, to
Yes.
listen and
Yes.
to help, to give you tools to learn how to navigate. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, as we come close to the end of our conversation here, right, what is one thing you want to leave our audience with? And also, what is one thing you would like to share with your daughter when she watch this?
I love her very much.
Mm.
I love my daughter Nyla. You're everything to me, and you are the reason why I do this. Why I do this, and why I get up every day, and why I move the way that I move. To show you that you too, you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. Right mindset, have balance. You know, always keep Jehovah first.
Mm.
And He'll help you with everything else that you need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Hi, Nala. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Self Reflection Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did as well. And also, if you want some mommy's sweet potatoes pie, you can follow us. We are going to tag her in the video as well. We're going to put her information in the description part of this podcast episode. So if you want some, you can find her info on the description part of this podcast. Or if you cannot find it, you can reach out to me on my Instagram and I will redirect you to her. Thank you again. And also, I just want to remind us as we close, if you are looking for someone to work with when it comes down to inner child healing, I do offer inner child healing workshops. It could be from a corporate standpoint or an individual perspective as well. You can connect with me on my Instagram at Lira, LIRA_NDIFOM. Also, go ahead and follow our YouTube channel. That's where we upload all of our full videos. If you want to watch the full video, we have it on our YouTube channel, Self Reflection Podcast by Lira Ndifon. I hope that you have a blessed day. Take care of yourself. Prioritize your mental health. Prioritize your emotional well-being. Until next time, you're listening to Self Reflection Podcast, and this is your girl Lyra. Ta-da!